September 2023. The Las Vegas Strip is paralyzed. Slot machines are dark. Hotel room keys are dead. Elevators are malfunctioning. The digital nervous system of one of the largest hospitality empires on Earth has been severed. MGM later told investors the September cybersecurity issue hit adjusted earnings by about $100 million across its Las Vegas Strip resorts and regional operations. If you read the headlines, you would think this was a masterstroke of digital espionage. You would picture a syndicate of hooded hackers deploying military-grade zero-day exploits, tearing through firewalls and bypassing state-of-the-art cryptography. You would be wrong. The weapon that brought down the casinos was not a zero-day in some exotic piece of software. It was a phone call. Imagine a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They spend millions teaching employees that multi-factor authentication is the impenetrable wall between a criminal and everything the company owns. But every wall has a door, and the person who holds the key to that door is not a security engineer. It is someone whose job is to help. Someone on a phone. Someone whose shift is measured in tickets closed, not in how many times they said no. In this investigation, we are tracing how a loose collective of young, native English-speaking criminals learned to walk right through the front desk of the digital fortress. If you want to see how the biggest breaches actually happen, hit subscribe and let's pull back the curtain. Before a criminal can make that phone call, they need a map. You cannot trick an IT help desk if you do not know who you are pretending to be. This brings us to the quiet, industrial pipeline of the modern cybercrime economy, the initial access brokers. Long before a major corporation realizes it is under attack, an employee makes a mistake. They download a cracked piece of software on their personal computer, or they click a link in a phishing email. That mistake quietly installs an infostealer, malware like Redline, Raccoon, or Llama. These stealers silently vacuum up everything saved in the web browser: passwords, session cookies, autocomplete forms. The data is packaged into logs and sold on automated marketplaces on the dark web or via Telegram channels. For a few dollars, an attacker purchases the digital life of a corporate employee. They now have the username, the password, the employee ID, the home address, and the internal jargon of the company. But there is a problem. The password is no longer enough. The company uses multi-factor authentication. The employee's phone has to buzz. The employee has to approve the login. The cryptography holding that MFA together is practically unbreakable. So the attackers decide not to break the math, they decide to break the human. Every large company builds two systems at once. One system is the technology stack you hear about in security marketing: firewalls, endpoint agents, identity platforms that sit in front of almost every tool you use at work. The other system is quieter. It is the help desk, the service desk, the outsourced support line that exists because humans lose phones, drop laptops in swimming pools, forget passwords, and get locked out at the worst possible moment. If you make support too hard, the business grinds to a halt. People call, they escalate, then complain. Managers ask why IT tickets take forever to resolve. So the organization optimizes for something that sounds completely reasonable: get people back to work as fast as possible. The people on the other end of the line are not villains. They are humans under immense pressure. They want to help, they want the call to end. They have a script, a checklist, a timer. In many companies, the person with the power to reset your multi-factor authentication is measured on speed and politeness. And in the world of modern cybercrime, usefulness is a fatal vulnerability. Voice phishing, or vishing, is an art form, and the threat actors who master it are tracked by cybersecurity agencies under names like Scattered Spider, UNC3944, Octotempest, and Muddled Libra. This cluster is often described as English-speaking actors, frequently young adults tracked in the US, the UK, and Canada, rather than the classic Eastern European ransomware crews of older headlines. They grew up in the high-stakes environment of SIM swapping and cryptocurrency theft. They speak fluent English. They understand Western corporate culture. When they call a help desk, they do not sound like hackers. They sound like a stressed-out middle manager who just got off a red-eye flight and needs to access a quarterly report. The tactics are aggressively psychological. Threat intelligence reports describe attackers researching employees online, including on platforms like LinkedIn, to identify people with useful access. Then they call the help desk. They use personal information bought from those infostealer logs to pass rudimentary security questions. If the IT agent hesitates, the attacker turns up the heat. Threat intelligence reports detail attackers using soundboards to play crying baby noises in the background, apologizing to the IT worker for the noise, and explaining they are desperate to get back online. They create urgency, they create empathy. Sometimes they threaten to report the IT worker to their manager for holding up critical business operations. They simply talk the organization into undoing its own protections. Sometimes the attackers don't even need to talk to IT, they just need to exhaust the employee. In August 2022, Twilio, a company that sits deep in the plumbing of how apps send texts and calls, published an incident report. Employees received SMS messages impersonating Twilio's IT department. Passwords had expired. People landed on fake login pages. Twilio said unauthorized access began around early August, and customer data was touched. Around the same era, Uber disclosed a breach involving an external contractor. The public story that stuck is almost painfully human. It began with a password bot from the underground. Then came the push bombing. MFA push notifications, over and over, for more than an hour. The employee's phone buzzes constantly. Deny, deny, deny. Then a WhatsApp message arrives. The sender poses as IT support. We're seeing some anomalies on your account. Accept the next prompt and the spam will stop. The exhausted contractor accepted the prompt. MFA failed because a tired person just wanted the buzzing in their pocket to end. The technology is a wall. The process is a person. And people get exhausted, frightened, or simply cooperative under a good story. But by 2025, this wasn't a one-off trick anymore. It was an industrial-scale operation. As the attacks proved successful, they became cleaner, more industrial. In the summer of 2023, Okta, a company that sits at the center of modern workplace login, published a security write-up about a pattern its customers were reporting. Between late July and mid-August, multiple US-based Okta customers described the same kind of social engineering: calls into IT service desks and immense pressure to reset multi-factor authentication for highly privileged users. They were not targeting random intern accounts. They were targeting the keys to the kingdom. According to Okta, once attackers obtained super administrator level power, they could set up a rogue identity path and walk into the organization's world through single sign-on, as if they were anyone they needed to be. Google's Mandiant threat intelligence team described the playbook in dry, devastating detail. Attackers show up with pieces of personal information, usernames, employee IDs, enough to pass identity checks that were never designed to withstand a patient, confident criminal. In one incident Mandiant documented, the path even ran through malware on a third-party IT outsourcer's laptop. This is a quiet reminder that the front desk is not always inside your building. Sometimes it is a vendor with a contract and a queue. September 2023, Las Vegas. Two giant casino operators. Two different outcomes. One shared lesson. MGM Resorts later told investors in its own SEC language that the September cybersecurity issue had a negative impact of approximately $100 million to adjusted property EBITDA for its Las Vegas Strip resorts and regional operations combined. What the public saw was systems offline, operations disrupted, and a hospitality empire forced into manual mode while the world watched. Caesars Entertainment filed its own notice. unauthorized access, social engineering against an outsourced IT support vendor, beginning at least as early as September 7th. A loyalty database was hit, driver's license numbers, and for a significant number of members, social security numbers. Passwords and payment cards, Caesars said, were not shown to be taken. Reporting put the ransom demand around $30 million and the payment around $15 million. Figures Caesars never put in its own filing as a clean admission. 2 casinos, 2 choices. The attackers later told security researchers a story about finding an employee through LinkedIn and calling a help desk. That detail is their claim. MGM did not adopt it as official history. The structural fact remains either way. Identity was the soft door, and identity sat behind a human process. This is where the ecosystem gets truly dangerous. The social engineers who talked their way into the network didn't act alone. They partnered with ransomware operators. ALV, also known as Blackout, appears in public reporting on MGM's disruption. One group opens the door with a phone voice. Another group brings the encryption software to turn that access into multi-million-dollar leverage. Here is the part large corporations hate to admit. The person who can reset your MFA might not even work for you. They work for a contractor, an outsourcer, a global services firm with a playbook designed to close tickets across dozens of clients. Their incentive is throughput. Their tool is helpfulness. Their verification ritual is whatever the client's contract allows. And usually, the shift supervisor permits whatever keeps ticket times down under extreme pressure. In a federal lawsuit filed by Clorox against its outsourced technology support provider, Cognizant, the company describes a call that reads less like a movie and more like a bad customer service transcript. Same day, the suit claims, multi-factor authentication on that exact account is reset more than once, again without the kind of friction you would expect if the fortress were real. Whether a jury ultimately agrees with every allegation is for a courtroom to decide, but what the filing does for this story is undeniable. It puts the Helpdesk moment into the public record, under penalty of legal process. You can buy the best identity platform on earth, but if the people authorized to rewrite identity will rewrite it for a convincing stranger, you rented a fortress and staffed it with a door that opens when someone sounds stressed enough. And in 2025, that exact vulnerability triggered a national retail shockwave. If this were only 2023, you could file it under a bad year for casinos. It was not only 2023. In 2025, the United Kingdom watched a retail wave that security agencies and major reporting tied with assessed attribution, not always courtroom finality, to the exact same social engineering culture. Marks & Spencer, the Co-op, Harrods. Public narratives describe Vishing into outsourced IT help desks, privileged MFA resets, and massive ransomware pressure. M&S online ordering spent weeks in pain. The Co-op confirmed personal data compromise affecting millions of members. Independent assessments of the financial impact ran into the hundreds of millions of pounds for the combined retail event. Estimates from monitoring bodies and reporting, not a single clean company line item. In parliamentary testimony, leadership publicly pointed to the scattered spider cluster and Dragon Force. This was not a rumor mill. This was a national retail shock. CISA and its partners updated their scattered spider advisory in July 2025. The threat actors were adapting. The updated threat picture detailed aggressive push bombing, SIM swapping, the deployment of Dragon Force ransomware, and new remote access tools like Teleport and AnyDesk. The malware tooling evolved, but the core strategy remained exactly the same. The human door remains open, and the target list is any large organization that still believes multi-factor authentication is a wall when the wall has a receptionist. For years, these stories ended the same way. A corporate logo, a ransom note on the dark web, a sanitized PR statement, and a collective shrug. Then, the anonymous handles started getting real names. In the United States, Noah Urban pleaded guilty and in August 2025 was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison and ordered to pay about $13 million in restitution. Others connected to the broader schemes, among them Tyler Buchanan, Ahmed El-Badawi, Evans Osiebo, and Joel Evans, have faced federal charges in cases prosecutors tied to this social engineering and crypto theft ecosystem. Some pleaded, some still fight their cases. Check the latest docket before you stamp any one sentence or prison term on screen. The net widened overseas too. In July 2025, UK police arrested 4 suspects tied to the massive retail wave. Reporting later described the wider underground scene these actors moved in as fluid and porous, sometimes discussed under the nickname The Calm, and noted a quieter period after the arrests. Treat that as scene setting, not a formal membership list. This chapter is not a celebration. It is a correction. There are humans on both sides of the phone. The support agent who was trained to be kind, the customer who could not check into a hotel room, and the young person who treated corporate identity like a video game right up until the game produced handcuffs.
Here is the uncomfortable conclusion. Multi-factor authentication is not fake. Cryptography is not theater. Modern identity platforms are not worthless. They are just incomplete. They assume the emergency path, the reset, the unlock, the "I'm traveling and I lost my phone" will be guarded with the same paranoia as the login box. In practice, that emergency path is staffed by people hired to reduce friction, outsourced, scripted, timed, kind. Criminals did not need to become better mathematicians. They needed to become better actors and better students of how companies treat their own employees. That is why this story is older than any one gang name. Social engineering is not new. What is new is the sheer concentration of power. One identity platform, one vendor queue, one successful story told to the right person at the right hour, and suddenly the perimeter is a memory. The fix is not a marketing slogan. Mandiant's advice is almost boring on purpose. Confirm a real human is on the other end of the line before you rewrite their keys. Demand a video call. Match the face on the webcam to the HR photo on file. Use hardware-backed security keys like YubiKeys that cannot be phished. Mandate callbacks to registered manager numbers rather than numbers the panicked caller supplies. Most importantly, write vendor contracts that prioritize secure verification over raw ticket closing speed. Training must treat a stressed voice as a risk signal, not as a customer to please at any cost. None of that is glamorous, but neither is a billion-dollar casino floor running on pen and paper.
So the next time you hear that a massive corporation was hacked, ask a quieter question. Was it a brilliant nation-state exploit in the software, or was it a password reset? Was it a zero-day vulnerability, or was it a help desk that simply did its job too well? Somewhere, right now, a support agent is picking up a call from someone who sounds exhausted, late for a meeting, and locked out of everything. That agent is not the villain of this film. The villain is a system that put the master key to the digital kingdom into the hands of the kindness of strangers, and then acted surprised when strangers showed up perfectly prepared. Some of the people who walked through that door are now on dockets and in prison cells, but the door is still there. They didn't hack the encryption, they hacked the exception. If this changed how you see the little reset password link on a corporate login page, subscribe and stay for the next investigation. Tell me in the comments down below, which everyday company process do you think is the next soft door? The one everyone trusts purely because it is supposed to help? I read them all, and some of your picks become the next film. Stay secure.